Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, and we're also going to stick to my home county of Skåne here in the very south of the country. So we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a couple of times before, and I think this is review number 3 or maybe 4 that I'm doing from these guys. But I'm very curious to see how this one turns out, because the last beer that I had from these guys that fit into the same category as this one was really quite good actually. So fingers crossed this is another one that follows on in the same vein as that. So for this review then, we are going to head a little bit north of me here in Lund to Helsingborg in the kind of northwest corner of the county. Very beautiful town that I would recommend you visit. And we're going to have a look at another beer from Friends Company Brewing. So this one is called the Blueberry Cupcake Sour. It comes in at 4.7% ABV, and they're describing this one as a Berliner Weisse with blueberry and vanilla added into the brew. So yeah, really curious to see how it turns out. The last beer that I had from these guys was the Skoglan's Beardrum Sour, if I remember the name rightly, and that again was one of these really nice fruity Berliner Weisses. And yeah, I've had some good beers from these guys over the last little while actually, and they're starting to build a really good reputation for themselves, so always nice to try their new beers here on the channel. This one was released as part of the local Småskaligt assortment for November of 2020 through Systembolaget here in Sweden. And I think I paid maybe about 40 Swedish kroners for this perhaps. Yeah, maybe about 40 Swedish kronor, something like that. So yeah, roughly about €4, maybe £3.50 for this can. So yeah, that's kind of roughly what you would expect to pay for a fruity Berliner Weisse or Gose or whatever these days. So yeah, curious to see how this one turns out. Like I said, nice to return to this brewery after a little while, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So let's see how we get on then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Friends Company Brewing before, and you will no doubt see more reviews added to that list in the near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Friends Company Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So Friends Company Brewing, as I've told you before, are a ghost or gypsy brewery based in Helsingborg in the northwest corner of Skåne. So the company was founded in the summer of 2016, and it's run by 4 friends. This is Martin Karlsson, Philip Hansen, Björn Axelsson and Jakob Behrens. So these guys produce around 20,000 litres of beer per year, and they started the company because they were home brewing enthusiasts and they just enjoyed drinking beer with friends, hence the name Friends Company Brewing. So Philip is a car enthusiast and entrepreneur. Jakob runs a home brewing store which is called hembryggeriet.se, so you can go and check out that website if you're interested. Martin has a background in electrical engineering and he works for Volvo, while Björn comes from a background in IT, so quite a diverse array of backgrounds from these guys who started up this company. But they started the brewery just as a part-time venture, and they just want to see how far it goes. And Martin and Philip take care of the business side of the company, whereas Jakob and Björn are the ones making the beer. So the first beers that they produced were made at Spike Brewery in Gothenburg in the Gamlestaden area. I've reviewed many beers from them, of course. Well, a number of the beers are also brewed at Brewing Fin in Landskrona, which is just a little bit to the south of Helsingborg. I used to work there, of course. But as of December 2020, when I'm filming this review for you guys, they've produced in the region of 25 different kinds of beer. And you will see a beer released every few months through the local Småskaligt assortment in Systembolaget from Friends Company Brewing. So yeah, still a gypsy brewery at the moment, but who knows, maybe in the future they will start up their own brewery. But they do have the aim that one of them will work full time for the company eventually and be producing all the and be producing all the beer. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Friends Company Brewing for the moment. As I said earlier, this is my third beer, or fourth beer perhaps, from these guys, and I have enjoyed the ones I've had so far, so I'm quite curious, as I said earlier, to see how this one turns out. So yeah, if you want to learn more about Friends Company Brewing, you can check out the brewery website in the video description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and have a look at this beer itself then. So, as I told you earlier, this beer is a 4.7% Berliner Weisse, and it has blueberries added into it along with vanilla. You can see the artwork is pretty nice actually. It does look pretty solid. I mean, it's pretty much a similar style of art to what we saw on the last one. There you can see on the side there is the Friends Company Brewing symbol, which is quite nice, and then it comes in at 4.7% ABV, as I said. So yeah, 330ml can, this one, released on the 1st of November 2020. Let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very, very curious about this, as I said already. So yeah, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting then. This should be pretty awesome. There we go. Look at the colour of this though. This is pretty damn impressive. Big head on this one, incidentally. Big head on this one. But yeah, any sediment left in it? No, actually we got most of the sediment out. That's what you want with the Berliner Weisse. You do want as much of the sediment and things actually in the beer as you can get. But as you can see with this one, it's poured a lovely, it's really poured very, very nicely. You can see this beer has poured with a finger and a half. Yeah, about a finger and a half of a big frothy kind of candied, almost purpley pinky coloured head there. You're going to get random colour heads from these big Berliner Weisses and Goses and things like that, of course. But yeah, the colour of the beer, I would say, it almost comes across as like a kind of burgundy. It's not a million miles away from the colour of my nice Japanese thick fluffy hoodie that I've got on. I love wearing this thing in winter. So yeah, a nice kind of burgundy, maroon, Heart of Midlothian football shirt, as I usually say for these kind of colour of beers. But yeah, it looks pretty nice. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass. You can see one or two little ones just going up towards the bottom of that head there. But I mean, overall, it does look pretty nice. And as I said, the colour of this beer is not particularly surprising when you consider what style of beer this one is. Remember, I've said in my personal opinion on the Berliner Weisses and things like this before, is that these big fruity Berliner Weisses, they're not the most complex of beers. They're usually quite straight shooting, and for me it's all about the transition of flavour, like how it goes from being really sharp and stuff in the beginning to being quite sweet in the aftertaste. That's the big thing for me when it comes to these Berliner Weisses, and the Skoglunds Bergdrum really did that quite well last time, so that makes me very curious about this one. Of course though, with these big sour beers, it is very, very hazy, and I mean, when you've got a malt base basically of wheat and sometimes a little bit of oats, that's exactly what you'd expect. Does it say this one? Yeah, this one has, it's basically barley, wheat and oats in it. So does it have hops? It says no. Yeah, no hops in this one. So yeah, certainly looks the part for one of these big fruity Berliner Weisses. So let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. Very, very curious about this. Ooh, now that does smell pretty nice. It is kind of what you'd expect, to be honest. If you've tried a few of these big fruity Berliner Weisses and stuff, then you will know what we're on about here. So straight away with this beer then, it actually does have a good little bit of a sort of white bready base to it. It's not the creamiest of these kind of big fruity Berliner Weisses that I've come across before, but you can smell a bit of a straight up soft white bread to this one. You can smell the slightly smoother and creamy oats. It almost has a little bit of that kind of yogurty thing that sometimes you can get from oats being in these beers. There is a little bit of bitiness to the wheat. If you take the aroma in really deeply, and you can get a little bit of bitiness towards the back of the nose. Yeah, you do get a wee bit of that wheaty bitiness just at the back of the nose, but mainly, as I say, a soft white bready character in there, some nice kind of smooth creamy oats, and a little bit of an almost yogurty character, as I was saying. But yeah, that is quite interesting actually. It's a very It's a really nice malt base this one has. It's quite different compared to the other ones that I've had before. But yeah, other than that in the malt base, there's not too much to report on this one, to be honest with you, and that's on that side of it. It's very straight up, but one of the more bready, soft white bready kind of leaning Berliner Weisses that I've come across in this kind of style bracket actually. As I said, this beer doesn't have hops in it, but you still get a little bit of grassiness on the kind of front nose out of this one. You definitely get a little bit of that out of it. There's a wee touch of a sort of earthy character to it, which is interesting. You do get a wee bit of that, but you can smell the lovely kind of fruity notes in here. The vanilla, I have to say, the other thing, we'll talk about the fruits in just a second, but the thing with the vanilla, I actually, you can smell a little bit of it kind of right in the middle of the nose, but it's not the most obvious, I would say. It's definitely not the most obvious of vanillas that you're going to come across actually, so I think that's a really nice that's a really nice way to kind of think about it as well. It's the vanilla in this one is just very, very subtle, but I guess the other thing that fits in with this, if they're saying blueberry cupcake sour, maybe that's what they want. They want the beer to just seem a little bit more bready and kind of subtle in that sense. So yeah, the vanilla notes come out. The vanilla notes come out there just in the very centre of your palate. It's almost got just a teeny little bit of an almost spicy character to the vanilla, which is quite interesting. So yeah, interesting composition in the malt base there, as I said. But yeah, a little bit of grassiness also, but with the fruity side of this beer, it is very kind of straight up again. You've got a really juicy kind of blueberry in there, and you can tell with this one that it is just straight up you know, blueberry additions to the boil. The thing is, when you get quite a few breweries like to just put a little bit of flavour essence into the beer along with the berries, just to sort of round out the flavour a little bit. But I think this one is pure blueberries, because you can really smell that sort of brambly kind of thing, that sort of woody, leafy kind of note that you can get from these berries. You can really smell that, along with the nice big juicy side of the beer as well. So at the front of the nose you're getting the real tartness off the blueberries, and then when you take it in a little bit deeper, you start to get the more juicy elements. You could be forgiven for thinking that there's a wee bit of you could be forgiven for thinking that there's a little bit of like a kind of figgy or plummy sort of note to this beer. But yeah, it will give you, your nose will pick up a few little complexities like that, but yeah, it's blueberries all the way in this one, but a couple of little notes of figs and things like that in there as well. But yeah, very straight up in a lot of ways, this beer. And as I've always found that these Berliner Weisses, they are very straight shooting, but the flavours come out very, very nicely. So yeah, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of this beer before you get stuck into it, but we're going to have a taste of this one now and see how we get on. So this one is the Blueberry Cupcake Sour, coming in at 4.7% ABV, a Berliner Weisse with vanilla and blueberries added to the brew from Friends Company Brewing in Helsingborg here in Skåne in the very south of Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. Ooh, that is pretty nice actually. First thing I'm noticing about this one is, this isn't one of the thicker and creamy. This isn't one of the thicker and kind of creamiest Berliner Weisses that you're going to come across. This one's actually got a little bit of wetness and stuff to it, which is quite nice. So this one takes a different approach in terms of its mouthfeel. It is a wee bit different from the Skåbland's Bergdrum that we had last time. I think this one's a bit lighter than that, but nothing wrong with that. Definitely nothing wrong with that. I'm going to say straight away to Friends Company Brewing once again, that's a damn solid beer. These guys know what they're doing, they certainly do, and that goes for the sour beers and for the kind of regular things as well. I need to have a look and see what these guys actually have in their range, and maybe try I think a stout and a lager is probably the next place to go with these guys, because I've tried their double IPA and I think this is the second sour that I've tried from them now, so I think a stout or a lager is probably the next place that we should go for these guys and see what's going on. But yeah, this is another solid beer from them, and it fits in well. These kind of sweet sour beers are quite popular at the moment. There's a lot of really good breweries in Sweden doing these kind of beers. So yeah, where to start with this one then? Again, I would say this is it's a very straight shooting beer, this one. The flavour profile is not madly complex, but it's really well executed, and that's personally what I look for with these kind of Berliner Weisse type beers. So yeah, let's kind of try and break down the flavour profile of this one a bit then. There's a little bit of slickness to it as well, which is nice. But yeah, so straight away with this beer then you can feel that nice sort of wheaty, white bready note. That just blankets the middle of your tongue there. You can feel a bit of the smoothness of the wheat, but you can feel that soft white bready note in the middle third of your palate, and as you go further back, that kind of goes back as well, but I think you start to get more of a kind of wheaty smooth. I think the wheat comes out a little bit more on that back third of your palate. You do get a little bit more of the wheaty character coming out on the back third of your palate, and I think it thickens up a wee bit as well. You can feel the breadiness in this beer just thickening up and then smoothing out on the top on that back third of your palate. For me, that's the wheat. I don't get so much in the way of bitiness out of the wheat. There's a tiny little bit of bitiness at the very back of the palate, but then yeah, as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, you can feel the thickness just drops away a little bit, and then in that middle third of your palate you get the nice kind of smooth, you do get the nice sort of smooth oatiness kind of sitting in there as well. So on top of the soft white bread in the middle third of your palate, it's a nice kind of smooth oaty layer that's sitting there. The vanilla kind of note in there, sort of, it feels infused into the white bread and into the kind of oaty side of the beer as well. Actually, it feels as if it's just infused in there. But again, like I said, from the aroma, it's not, how do you say, it's not kind of really overpowering or whatever. It just really plays quite a nice role, to be honest with you. It just feels like it's almost just infused a little bit into the overall flavour profile of the beer. But yeah, this one does come across very nicely in that sense, I would say. Yeah, it's really a well executed beer. This, you can't really say much more than that. The malt base, I think, comes across really nicely. You do even get a little tiny spice almost out of that vanilla note that I was talking about. You can feel the middle of your palate just dries out a little bit, and I think the vanilla comes out of this one a little bit more the further you go into the aftertaste. But yeah, quite a soft white bready base to this beer again, like I said, but I think this one goes together very nicely. On the sides of your palate then, remember, this is where the hops usually come out of this beer, but this one doesn't have hops, and that's quite a common thing amongst the more American style breweries these days, is to not put hops in these kinds of beer. But I still get a teeny little bit of earthiness out of it, and you can feel there's not a lot going on the sides of the palate, but as you reach the kind of front corners of your palate, you can feel there is just a little bit of grassiness almost around the front third of your tongue. As I say, this is probably a kind of placebo, because these are the sort of flavours you would expect to get there, but there's no hops in the beer to give you these kind of flavours actually. So yeah, the traditional German Berliner Weisses, they would put a little bit of hop in them, but what they try and do is put a kind of low alpha acid hop and a slightly older hop in there, so that it doesn't take away from the sourness of the beer. That's usually the thing. I think the Belgians do that with the Lambics and the Flanders Reds and things like that as well, to be honest with you. But yeah, that's something that you find quite commonly. This beer though does not have hops, just a nice little bit of smoothness on the edge of the palate. But yeah, on the fruity side of things then, as I always say, the fruits come out on that front third of your palate where you get that nice oily bubble, but in this case, as I say, we don't really have the hops in this one, because usually you would get the fruity esters from the hops just rolling their way out. But yeah, for this beer, you really get more, it's really more of a, how would we say, it really is a little bit more of a, It's just more. It's more of a kind of wet, a kind of fruity wetness you get out of this one. The way to always tell if fruit's been added into a beer or whether it's part of the hop is, the thing is, the fruits will come out on the very edge of the tongue, and you can feel that nice wet berryish quality there just on the very edge of your palate. That's how you know the fruit's been added into the beer. So for me, you do get a little bit of the juiciness of the blueberries sitting there around the edge of your palate, but then on the front third of your tongue it feels as if you've almost just got a little bit of a slightly wet figgy kind of note to it. It's quite interesting. So yeah, when you take the beer in, you do get a wee bit of sharpness on it right behind the kind of front curve of the tongue there, but you can feel the juicy wetness, it just kind of spreads its way back along the front third of your palate there. The juiciness just really spreads its way out a little bit, and it goes together really, really nicely in that sense. So you get a lot of juiciness out of this beer, the further back you go on that front third of your palate. So it's a nice soft. There are a few little complexities in there, you know, a little bit of a kind of like sort of curranty, raisiny sort of thing, and then a sort of figgy note. But around the very kind of front edge of the tongue, that's where you get the big juicy blueberry qualities out of this beer. So I really like how this one goes together in that sense. So it gets a big thumbs up from me in that regard. This one. It's a very straightforward beer, this, in a lot of ways. A very straight shooter, as I've said, these kind of styles can be, but I think, pardon me, it works very, very nicely, and I certainly would recommend this beer. In terms of Berliner Weisses overall, it's definitely one of the more kind of bready ones that I've come across. It's a bit more of a juicy beer, this one. It's not got such a kind of tartness to it either, but it works really, really nicely in that sense. So a big thumbs up to Friends Company Brewing again with this one. Another solid beer from these guys. So yeah, I look forward to seeing what their next offering is going to be. But yeah, that covers the flavour profile of this beer quite well. Let's go on to the mouthfeel then to round off the review. So I would say overall, it's kind of towards the bottom end of mid-bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth. This one's definitely one of the slicker and less thick and creamy Berliner Weisses that you're going to come across. So yeah, it's got a nice, it really does have a nice mouthfeel to it, this one, and I think everything just kind of fits together very, very well in this beer in my mind. So I do like how that all goes together in this one. So yeah, mid-bodied, bottom end of mid-bodied, quite smooth, and it's just solid in that sense, I guess we could say. So on the hoppy bitterness side of things, I think there will be a couple of IBUs in this one, like maximum 5. This beer will have been brewed to have no IBUs, but I always think you're going to get a couple out of it. The malt base is very, very smooth. It's not the thickest and creamiest, and the thickest and creamiest of Berliner Weisse malt bases you're going to get. I find it very soft and kind of bready in that sense. Low, as I said, low IBUs, then you've got a nice juicy fruitiness to this one. It's just got a little bit of kind of tartness in the beginning from the blueberries, but yeah, really interesting beer, this one, and I have enjoyed reviewing this for you. So I guess we can round off this review there. Nice to review another beer from Friends Company Brewing. Always good to support the Skånsk breweries as well. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed my take on this one. So let's leave it there. So yeah, this was the Blueberry Cupcake Sour. A 4.7% Berliner Weisse with a bit of vanilla and blueberries added into the brew from Friends Company Brewing, a gypsy brewery based in Helsingborg here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. Another nice beer, and I do look forward to my next beers from these guys. So yeah, let's round it off there. Thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Friends Company Brewing, and we will no doubt return to these guys at some point in the near future. Check out my social media, check out Friends Company Brewing, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. The Blueberry Cupcake Sour, 4.7% ABV, Berliner Weisse with vanilla and blueberries from Friends Company Brewing, Helsingborg, Skåne here in the south of Sweden. Slange, skål, cheers.